everybody and welcome back to another episode of Surrounded by Bourbon. Today we are back in Ireland and we are looking at the Boann Distillery triple distilled single pot still, and this is their PX finish expression. So Boann Distillery, absolutely fantastic place. It's just about a 25-minute drive north of Dublin Airport, situated just on the outskirts of the town of Drogheda. And actually it was one of the last distilleries that I visited before I came here to Florida. Boann as a company were established by the County family in 2015 when they started building the distillery, and spirit production actually began in 2019. So while waiting for their own spirit to come of age, they have also got a sourced whiskey, which is called the Whistler. This is the Marsala cask. I'll review that at some point. So, you know, that's just to help pay the bills. And it's also helped them to learn about cask management and so on while they're waiting for their own spirit to mature. And they say they're kind of committed to really reviving Ireland's rich heritage in pot still style whiskey. And their distillery is a thoroughly modern facility that is helping them to explore and revive that history. One of the interesting aspects of the distillery is their use of nanotechnology in their Italian-made stills. So basically inside the necks and also the line arm of the stills, it's not smooth inside, it's actually a rough surface inside the copper there, and that allows them to get greater copper contact. That also means that that copper is actually going to last longer as well before they actually have to do any repairs. The other interesting thing is that the line arms actually have an internal coil that they can turn on or off a cold water supply. So that means that they can increase or decrease reflux very easily, which means that they can make a really wide range of spirits, from very light and floral to really heavy and oily. So there's going to be some exciting stuff coming from Boann in the future. The first of the Boann whiskies of their own spirit is the single pot still range. So there's a Madeira cask, a Marsala cask finish, and this the PX. These were released in June of 2024. And these are what are known as GI compliant pot stills, or geographic indicator compliant. So the Irish Whiskey Technical File has rules about what is a pot still whiskey, the same way as the Scotch Technical File tells you what Scotch whiskey and how it's made. So at the minute, for pot still whiskies, it means that you have to have at least 30% malted barley and 30% unmalted barley in your mash bill. And you're allowed up to 5% other grains. So that could be wheat, rye, oats, millet, whatever you want to put in. But that's your kind of base ratios. And so most of the Irish distillers pot stills are kind of like a 60-40, 50-50 split on the malted and unmalted barley. I'll get on to actually what their distillate is in a minute. But one of the things that they have done as well, they have partnered up with Fionnán O'Connor, who is very well known in Irish whisky circles, has done an awful lot of delving into the historical mash bills of old Irish distilleries. And actually, Boann and Fionnán came together and they actually distilled 10 vintage mash bills that really explored the different grain profiles. So some are really heavy in oats, some are heavy in wheat, rye, all these different type of things. Now, they, when they come to market, cannot be called pot still whiskey at the minute because of the technical file, but really they are very much pot still whiskies with the use of the malted and the unmalted barley. I was lucky enough, I think it was like 2021 or 2022, that they actually sent out beautiful packages of the 10 distillates in a new make form, along with really lovely packaging explaining all the different mash bills, what kind of time frame they were from, what distillery would have been kind of distilling these spirits, and honestly they were absolutely delicious. and I cannot wait until some of them come to market. I actually do have one from Two Stacks in the cupboard back here, which is a 4-year-old pot still that was distilled at Boann, and it's one of those old heritage mash bills, and I think from memory it is quite heavy on oats, so I'm looking forward to exploring that one. Anyway, on to the Boann. So the mash bill here is 40% malted barley, 55% unmalted barley, then 3.75% oats and 1.25% rye. Their whiskies are triple distilled, they are natural colour, they are non-chill filtered. This is also 47% ABV or 94 proof. And I haven't seen the Madeira or the Marsala cask, but I picked this up at ABC Wines locally. It's normally $70 a bottle, or around £52, 60 euros. I picked this up for $60, so I was very happy with that. I also want to just highlight how beautiful the bottle is. I'm not normally too hung up on that type of thing, but I just think that this is a really class act, and a lot of thought has obviously went into the design, but yeah, really nice stuff. So anyway, let's get into the nose, shall we, and see what we're going to get. So straight away, it's the unmalted barley that is singing here, as well as the rye. So you're getting really strong ginger. There's like rye bread, and then treacle. There's a really pleasant oakiness to this as well, not overpowering, but yeah, you definitely get the woody element. Then there's like tinned pineapple chunks, some tangerines, definitely like marzipan, almonds, there's some toffee apple, definitely from the PX finish you're getting some of those like sticky dates, raisins, some dried fig rather than fresh fig. And definitely there's a leathery quality to this as well. A little French polish. And a really good dose of milk chocolate. And it's also slightly umami. Maybe like a beef bouillon, or maybe like dry fried mushroom kind of smell. So, you know, there's a lot going on here. This is definitely a complex nose, very, very inviting, very pleasing. So we will go on to the palate without further ado, and let's see what sort of notes we're going to get. The mouthfeel to this is really, really good. It's really, really oily, coats the mouth. And on arrival, there is a little bit of pot still spice, but it's kind of sweetness up front. There's damson jam, there's honey, there's raisins, there's a bit of fresh fig, and then you kind of get the spice coming through. There is like some ginger, a little bit of clove, even a bit of peppermint. And even actually, it's like a combination of fresh ginger and then a little bit of like stem ginger as well in the syrup. So let's see what else we get here. So that kind of tropical fruit note of the pineapple chunks is there again. Maybe a little bit of dried mango, dried apricot, some stewed apples. There's dark chocolate in there. And just kind of at the back of the palate, there's like a little bit of sweetened black coffee. All in all, a very, very, very drinkable whiskey. And now we'll go on, I'll take another little sip and then we'll go on to the finish. Yeah, so finish wise, it's medium length. There's plenty of spice going on there. There's orchard fruit, some tropical fruit, that PX sherry sweetness is definitely there, as well as some of that coffee just to round things out. What I do like about this is that the PX is kind of restrained. It does not take over proceedings. So there's a good interplay between the pot still distillate and the different maturation, the bourbon casks, and then the PX. So all in all, really, really nice. What would I score this? So I'm going to score this a 7 out of 10. You know, for years the single pot still market has really been dominated by Irish distillers, and that's been a great thing because it's kind of brought the single pot still genre back to life. And so really, you know, a lot of people still think very highly of Green Spot or Redbreast, and to be honest, as I've said in the Redbreast review of the Quattro Gorillas, like I'm sort of losing a little bit of interest in those brands, just because of these newer waves of pot still whiskies that are looking into the different grain mash bills rather than just focusing on the barley. You know, some of the newer pot stills that came from Teeling and Glendalough, they kind of showed promise, but they were young, they were a bit unruly, they weren't really, I didn't think they were worth it. This, however, is an absolutely cracking whiskey, and you know, it's not old. This is probably only 5 to 6 years old now, but in comparison to the Green Spot or to Redbreast, I think this kind of blows them out of the water, to be honest. Green Spot and Redbreast here are usually around $65 to $70, so the same price as this. They're 40% ABV or 80 proof, so they're in the, you know, the lower proof range. I probably chill filtered, and I do know every now and again that IDL do use a little bit of caramel colouring, but this here to me just blows them out of the water. For the same price, I would encourage anyone to go and buy these over those products. And I cannot wait to see how Boann keep going and how this will progress as they get older stocks. So anyway, there you go. There is my thoughts on Boann single pot still. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please support the channel. Please like, subscribe, comment, share it, all that good stuff. And next video we're going to be back in Scotland. So have a good day, good night wherever you are. Sláinte.